The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Oh my God, is it you? Yes, it's you. And it's me. I'm here. I'm sitting in Minneapolis, minding my own business. I have pants on tonight. Yes, I do. Coming to your cordless, everybody. It's Tuesday night, August 19th, 2025. I am Jim Peters with pants on. And welcome to another edition of Jim Peters Tonight. This is show number 267. Mark your cards. There'll be a test someday. Who knows when? Our guest tonight is Salvadore Litvak. Sal's been here. He was here 2-3 months ago pushing his book, and now we're pushing his movie, and his movie's excellent. So he's a film producer and director, and he's the director and producer of the movie Guns and Moses, which maybe you've heard about. It has a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes. No lie. But you'll hear from his story. It was put in theaters in July and had a fantastic run for a couple weeks, and then it got pulled for Superman. They decided they wanted they wanted more theaters for Superman, and so they pulled his movie and put Superman there in the place. And what's going to happen now is they're going to re-release it on September 7th. So he's here joining us. Fantastic guy. I talked to a lot of really cool people. But you want people that are either smart, funny, and or wise, and this guy's all three of those things. And it reminded me, I took a walk after we did the interview this afternoon, and we pre-recorded this. And let me, as an aside, we are pre-recording more interviews because more and more people are having technical problems connecting. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's the internet. I don't know if this is getting more complex on other people's ends. There's only so much we can do here. We almost always get it figured out, but sometimes it takes us 5 or 10 minutes. And if we were doing this live, that would be disastrous. You'd be waiting around, and sooner or later, you're going to be on OnlyFans. I know you. I know what's going on. So we are pre-recording most of our interviews now. Anyway, I took a walk afterwards, and it occurred to me, I was thinking about what Alan Carr, the famous impresario, said. He was famous for his parties in LA in the 70s and 80s. I never got a chance to go. I was nobody. But he said when it comes to humans, there's only 3 things that matter: brains, money, and ass, in that order. And he's right. I don't know. I can't argue with that. Those are the 3 things when it comes to humans that are important. You need at least one of those 3 things to stand out. So anyway, Sal's here. Tomorrow, Larry Newman, our old friend, bail bondsman extraordinaire, Bigfoot investigator, he's joining us for our last show of August. And then we're off till Tuesday, September 2nd. We're taking, I think it's 12 days, I think it is. We're off on Thursday. We're taking this Thursday off and all of next week. And, of course, Monday, Labor Day, too. Now, we're running reruns the entire time. They're best ofs. That's what I call them. That's what my friends call them. They may be better ofs. I don't know. But anyway, we'll be running those Monday through Friday for the days that we're gone. When we come back on September 2nd, who do we got? We got Jared Knott. He's written a book he's actually 2 books. He put out a sequel to this called Tiny Blunders and Big Disasters. It's about stuff in history that's happened where people made small mistakes that had enormous consequences. I bought this book well before I even knew who he was or we tried to book him or anything. I bought the first one. It's pretty cool. It really is. And also that night, too, our second guest is Scott Walter, and he's written a book called Arabella, the Dark Money Network of leftist billionaires secretly transforming America. And he's talking about a group called Arabella Advisors. And this is basically his from what I understand, his contention is that this group is basically what people refer to as the global cabal, basically, and that they're basically the people who are running behind the scenes that run everything. Supposedly, that's he's our second guest. So that's the other thing we're doing coming September too. We've played around with it this month, and that is we're going to have more and more shows with 2 guests on them. So yeah, because that's what we do. Because Kimberly, who's booking a lot of this show, she talked me into it, and yeah, it'll be pretty cool. We're not taking any calls tonight. We're taking calls tomorrow. We'll have the phone lines open tomorrow. You want to talk to Larry? Larry's a good dude. You enjoy him. Larry comes by once a month. I got 2 or 3 people here who come by once a month. And the weird thing is, I was just sent an email to Larry today to remind him that these months go by so fast. It's unbelievable. It just seems like he was here a week ago, but no, it's been a whole month. So anyway, yeah, so Larry's joining us tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's get Sal Litvak on here. And what do you say we can do this in 12 seconds? I bet we can. Joining us from his office in Los Angeles, California, comedian, author, producer, director. Did I miss anything? Salvadore golf coach. There's that too. Salvadore Litvak. Hi, Sal.
Them that can't do, coach.
That's right. And those who can't coach Jim. That's right.
That's it.
That's right. Yeah. So the last time you were on, we were talking about your book, but we specifically wanted you to come back to talk about your movie, Guns and Moses. Now, this has been the release you've had so far has been a huge success. You got a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Has that ever happened ever? Jesus Christ.
I mean, there's been other movies, but thank God we're in very rare company to have an audience score that high.
Yeah.
The release was very successful in terms of the people that got to see the movie. The problem is how difficult it was to get screens during this summer of tentpole superhero movies from the studios, which the studios don't want to fail, and they'll pay not to fail. So whereas it used to be that when a studio released a movie wide nationally, they would get 2,000 screens. Now, these kinds of movies get 4,000 screens. And what that means is that they're taking up multiple rooms in the multiplexes.
Right.
And it's just very hard to get the real estate. So we were told that we'd be released on 300 screens, thin, but a national presence.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being only 77. Which was so frustrating because we ran a great marketing campaign. So many people collaborated with us. We had 52 articles written about us in major publications. And everyone was so anxious to see the movie, but it wasn't playing near them. And then it came and went quickly because the theaters would, they were able, this is the summer when the people did come, and they were able to sell so many tickets to Superman and Jurassic and F1, et cetera. And so we were just not there for a very long time. But people kept saying, "Where's the movie? Where's the movie? When's it coming to our city?" And thank God, Fathom Entertainment heard the demand from the audience and said, "We're going to do a Fathom event." Now, this is very interesting because Fathom's been around for 20 years. They do special events at the movie theaters, national, but usually 1 or 2 nights type of thing.
Before you go on, did you guys actually then get kicked out of the theaters altogether because of Superman, or did you pull it out? What exactly happened there from the 77 screens you were on?
Yeah, they kicked us out. They kicked us out because they could make more money with more screens showing Superman.
Yeah,
I don't blame them. They're in the business of making money, and they should. And this very specialized type of movie in terms of the messaging, it's not obvious. This is a movie about a rabbi with a gun, who defends his community. But it is not a movie only for the Jews, very much, as it took some time to get out there. But we're getting amazing coverage in the Christian press, Crosswalk, Church Leaders, Pathos, BeliefNet, Movie Guide just did a wonderful piece about Guns and Moses.
It's basically, at the end of the day, an action thriller, right?
It's an action thriller about a man of faith whose community is under attack, and he steps up to fight back. He becomes a detective when the cops won't investigate the crime. And to prepare for it, my wife and I watched a thriller a day for 2 years.
All right, before you go on, Sal, before you go on, let's play the teaser, okay? We got a 1 minute teaser to your movie, all right? And we'll be on the screen here too. Here we go.
This attack, this crime against a Jewish community will not go unpunished.
Get your hands off my son!
Your son's a member of a white nationalist hate group.
Isn't the killer in custody? The suspect is in custody.
I told him what I found, then he was killed.
What did you find?
Why you want to play detective?
Because no one else is.
Are you gonna find who did it and get me out of here?
Yes, I am.
When your enemy tells you that he wants you dead, believe him.
Oh man, you can't do much better than that. Holy Christ.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Also, looks very expensive.
The movie kicks ass. So many people came together and worked on it. We shot it in only 20 days. That's how we were able to make it for under $5 million. But it looks like a proper studio picture with amazing performances, big names, Neil McDonough, Mark Feuerstein, Dermot Mulroney, Christopher Lloyd, Jake Busey, Craig Schaefer, Alona Tal. They did such a good job. And so that's why we were so frustrated when we couldn't hold those screens and give time for the word of mouth to really get out there about the movie. But it has gotten out there. And so Fathom stepped up. And even though in all their 20 years and hundreds of releases, they've never brought a movie back to theaters immediately after its theatrical release, they did for Guns N' Moses. And so we're going to be 5 nights only this September 7th through 11th. Theaters across America, hundreds and hundreds of screens. It's in a theater near you, almost for sure, no matter where you are. And people got to come out. If this is the kind of movie that you want to see, if you're tired of the usual Hollywood agenda that they're cramming down your throats and that you can't really, enjoy and get your mind around because it's offensive, this is a movie for you. This is a kick-ass action thriller with good values. There's no nudity, there's no profanity because it didn't need to be. We're not going to stick that in, just for unneeded and really irrelevant shock value, which is how it often gets stuck in there.
Sal,
it's characters that you can care about living
I'm very,
through.
very tired of the gratuitous nude scene added to movies for no reason. It's like, I like naked women. I don't care. It's like, you don't need to do that.
Exactly. Because the story stops. So
right.
Just put that stuff on.
That's right.
But it was not necessary, and we didn't do it. This is a movie with good values and exciting, kick-ass. The structure is a mystery. It's a mystery thriller, but with a lot of action. Because when we were watching a thriller a day for 2 years, I was kind of noticing how many thrillers lack action. And we sort of had the trailer in mind as we were writing the movie. So all of the action is not just added, it's necessary to the story. It's all integrated into the story and necessary.
So what did you watch? About 500 of those movies?
Yeah, well, we don't watch movies on Shabbat. We are Orthodox Jews. But 6 days a week we were watching movies. And some we watched over again. But I think our list has about 400.
About 400.
And,
so, may I ask you, what kind of generalization did you draw after watching 400 of those movies?
I think I would say almost about thrillers or really about all movies, the same thing that Leonard Bernstein said about music. There's really only two kinds, good and bad. Most are bad.
The classical musician, right? He also said, the thing about Rhapsody in Blue is that there's six themes. It doesn't matter what order you're playing them. It's still Rhapsody in Blue. But anyway, yeah. Right. There's good and bad movies. There's good and bad music. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but we really tried to learn from the masters. Definitely, that you'll see in Guns N' Moses the influence of Hitchcock. We have an incredible set piece. You saw it in the teaser there at this massive thermal solar energy farm,
Yeah.
mirror
Holy
farm
Christ. I know.
in
And
Mojave.
later on, we're going to play your actual trailer too. And like, where was that? Where did you get that?
So, it's kind of an interesting story. I had seen, as we were developing the story that would become the movie, I had many years ago noticed if you drive from LA to Vegas, you pass this other thermal solar facility with these huge towers. It appears actually in the opening credits of our movie, these 500-foot towers with these like glowing caps and hundreds of thousands of mirrors that are moving all day long to keep the light of the sun focused on these towers. And it's such a spectacular looking place. And I thought that would be an amazing scene, an amazing location for a cat and mouse scene, like at what do you call it? Mount Rushmore in North by Northwest from Hitchcock. And so I had the idea to do a scene there before we had a movie to put it in. We wrote it into Guns N' Moses. And then when it came time to shoot it, that place called Ivanpah, which has actually been in the news lately because it was just this boondoggle that's finally going out of business. I think Trump shut it down. But they wouldn't let us shoot there. And so like, oh my God, like we wrote this incredible scene for that location. What are we going to do? Are we going to try to do it digitally? It'll be hokey.
Well, can I ask did you have characters climbing up at the top of the tower? Is that what you had?
Not up in the tower, but among the mirrors, right? So a scene among mirrors is always going to be good, especially such a vast
and you can
place you've never seen on film.
Right, yeah.
And they wouldn't let us shoot there, but my drone operator, he was like doing research, on YouTube, and he's like, "Wait, Sal, there's another place that's even cooler looking." Like, what's that? And it's this Mojave solar facility where instead of individual heliostats that are about like 10 foot by 10 foot, here they have these parabolic trough mirrors that are 30 feet high and 200 yards long.
Yeah.
2,000 of them. I mean, the scale of this facility is mind-blowing. And we went and we asked if we could shoot there, and nobody had ever asked before. We're the first production to come there. And they said yes. It was so cool. And we spent the whole day, out there scouting the location. We're like, 20 people from the crew and my producers and scouts and whatnot.
Now, do you mind if I ask? You don't have to give me a number, but do you have to pay those people to actually use that facility or not?
I think we paid a very modest fee, because they have to have like, supervisors and technicians
That's why I asked.
like babysitting us,
Right.
But they were very generous. I mean, if a Hollywood production goes there, they'll get,
they'll
probably get hundreds of thousands of dollars for that.
I'm sure.
For us, it was much, much, much less.
Right. Okay.
But it was funny because we spent the day out there. I said, this is going to be amazing. This is, so often in life, you have plan A, God has plan B.
Yeah.
B is better. B is better, right? And so this place is going to be amazing. But the one thing was like, we're going to have a shootout there. So it would be great if we could break some of these mirrors, And so I asked the guy who was showing us around, one of the managers, do you think we could break some of these mirrors? And he's like, no. No, we make solar energy here. You can't break mirrors. It's like, no problem. We'll do that digitally. So, the day ended. It's like about 3.5 hours away from LA. And I try to be the captain on the ship, the last man to leave at the end of the day. And so there were 2 cars left in the parking lot, mine and this other one. And this guy comes out of the building and he says, "Did you find everything okay?" Right? Like the greeter at Target. Did you find everything okay? And I said, "Yeah, we did. Thanks so much." And I started talking with him, and he's the boss, right? He's the CEO of the place. And I was born in Chile. Spanish is my first language. I came to the United States when I was 5. And I noticed that his name was Latino. And so I asked him if he speaks Spanish, of course. And then he was, I think, from Mexico originally. And we started speaking in Spanish, and we really bonded. And then I said, so by the way, is it possible that we could break some of those mirrors when we do the shootout here? And he says, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Mirrors break all the time. We have to replace them when the wind breaks them. So sure you can."
So did
So
you
we got to
actually,
do everything we wanted.
did you end up actually shooting at them? What I assume you're using.
I mean, you don't shoot guns on a movie set. Let me tell
Right.
you,
Yeah.
we do not ever have real bullets on a
Right.
movie
I
set.
assume that. Right. So how did this work?
And I just mentioned that because our production was shortly after that tragedy, involving Alec Baldwin.
Right.
So we had an excess level of caution on my set. And because I'm part of a volunteer security force, I carry a firearm in our synagogue. We have to protect ourselves. We could talk about that after. So there was extra measures of security. But no, when you break mirrors, as part of this shootout in a scene, there are squibs that are wired to the mirrors. But the reason that you want to do it real and not digital, first of all, it looks real. Digital's gotten very good, but it's a little better if it's real. And the actor.
Right.
It's
and
very
also,
close to him when it happens. And when he reacts, it's really happening and scaring him.
Sometimes CGI almost looks too good, doesn't it? I mean, isn't that part of the problem?
The uncanny valley.
Yeah. Right. So that's pretty cool. You end up blowing up mirrors. Fantastic.
We ended up blowing up some mirrors and part of the story, since we're talking about firearms now, is the rabbi is not a gun guy. He doesn't know from guns. But when the danger starts skyrocketing to himself, his family, his community, he realizes that he has to learn how. Now, there's a lot of movies where a person has to learn how to shoot. And so what is it? It's 5 tin cans on a fence. He misses the first one. Then he hits it. Then he hits them all. And 15 seconds later in the montage, he can shoot. Right. So that's not the real world at all. God forbid, you need your gun in a moment of pressure and danger for you to shoot accurately and safely. That's only going to happen if you have tremendous training and reps under your belt. And there's a language to shooting, right? Sight picture, trigger press, let the bang surprise you, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, proper grip, fundamentals, finger off the trigger, things like that. And in our movie, you see that when he learns to shoot, he's learning from an instructor and it's at the range and it's dramatic. It's not like the story stops, that he's learning to do that. And it's very difficult and he's failing at first. And then he starts to get it, but it's authentic firearms training. I've traveled a lot with the movie, showing it to different audiences and people in the firearms community, and especially law enforcement. They love it. They're like, this is so great. It's so good to actually see that. A person learning like you learn in the real world. And
Sal, I have a cousin in law enforcement, and he's told me that the real big problem is instructing people on when to shoot if they're shooting at people. That's good. Am I right about that? I'm not. Well, I've done target practice. That's it. That's all I've ever done.
Listen. First of all, you never know how you're going to react until you're there. Just like soldiers don't know how they're going to react. But for them to have a chance to do the right thing and protect people and protect themselves and shoot the bad guy, it's not only, many reps of bringing up the gun quickly, getting the sights on target and shooting accurately, but it's also running those scenarios. Mm-hmm. Somebody has a hostage, somebody is around the corner. How are you going to come around that doorway and protect yourself? Law enforcement has a whole different set of responsibilities than just, us, security. We're only shooting, when there's an imminent threat of harm. Right. We don't arrest people. We don't pursue bad guys. If they're running away, we're done. But law enforcement has a very different set of responsibilities, and they have to run the many, many more scenarios. But what you're saying, like one of the most important things that we have to learn, anybody with a gun has to learn, is not only to see the target, but what's beyond the target. Because if you miss or if you go through the target, then what's behind the target? You have to know that.
Yeah. So this is your third movie, right?
Yes.
As producer and/or director.
My wife and I are a mom and pop shop. We write the screenplays together, and I direct, and then I always bring on a producing partner. Usually I do the financing part, finding the investors. That's really the hardest part in
It
Hollywood.
is, isn't it?
The
Right.
financing.
Yeah.
But after that, I need producers who will actually take over the management of the project so that I can focus on the creative as the director.
Right.
But the writing takes much longer, much longer, and that's what really it all stems from. You can't make a good movie out of a crappy script.
Well, right. And that's actually, I have a friend of mine on here regularly. He's also a film director, and he says the same. And I totally buy this too, that the reason writers are kind of treated kind of shitty in Hollywood is because everyone realizes they're dependent on them. It's like, it's the only part of the film basically at this point that you can't fake. You can't fake bad, you can't deal with bad writing. And so the fact people are resentful about the fact that they're dependent on the writers, I think that do you think there's something to that, or?
There's something to that. And you also have the problem, and this is why so many Hollywood movies suck, right? Is that probably there was a good script at the beginning, and that's why the movie got made.
Right.
But then this star wants his part to be bigger and to have this emotional issue and that backstory, and that star wants this thing and this backstory and these lines. And then, of course, the studio executives want to feel useful, like they have their imprint on the movie. And so you have all these competing agendas demanding rewrites that are solving the problem that person has, but not a problem that the movie had.
Yeah.
And so by the time they get to production, so often it's like a Frankenstein script that's addressing all kinds of different issues and has lost its cohesiveness.
Is this going to be a problem going forward with just society in general? I mean, there are more and more people involved in more and more things. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to come to the conclusion, in most instances, you don't need that many people. You just need a few good people. I mean, don't you think? I mean,
absolutely. I would say the problem is already there and maybe maxed out. Hopefully things are going to get better because people are realizing this, because it's a little bit more, there's some respect coming back to the auteur who's wanting to do something original. I think America is a little bit tired of the pre-branded content. The Marvel movies are not the sure success that they used to be.
Yeah.
In part because they've submitted to a woke agenda, and these studio executives are kowtowing to their interns who they're afraid to offend. But also, I think we're in a period like we were in the 70s, the early 70s, where the movies had grown stale. The sort of 50s spectacles, kept getting done over and over again in the 60s. And then like America just kind of a little bored. And then people started saying in Hollywood, oh, they're not coming to the movie theaters anymore because they're watching TV at home. Yeah. And then you had some new voices come up in the early 70s making movies that hadn't been made before, doing really interesting things. And the audience came rearing back. So I think that you've gotten some new voices coming into the scene. I think especially, where movies are really coming a long way from where they were is in the faith-based space. It used to be that if you talk about a faith-based movie, it was kind of schlocky.
Right.
A guy who had alcohol problems finds God and, becomes a family man again. Those are very nice stories, but there's so much more to say in the faith-based space. And now I think you've got some great directors, great acting, great stories, and bigger budgets to work with because the audience has shown that it is interested in these stories. And those are almost invariably Christian, but Guns N' Moses can take its place in that faith-based space from a Jewish perspective and Judeo-Christian values. I mean, 3/4 of the Christian Bible is the Jewish Bible. We have so much in common, so much we can agree on. And, the very definition of evil and what is good and what is right and how do we defend ourselves. I've made a couple of videos of myself getting dressed to go to synagogue, and I show my gun. And people say, what, that's disgusting. How could you wear a gun? A gun and God has nothing to do with each other. It's, I'm appalled.
It's not disgusting. It's disgusting until somebody starts shooting people in your synagogue.
Yeah, exactly. And what people should know is that the 10 commandments include the commandment, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not murder. Doesn't say thou shalt not kill. because of course we can kill to defend ourselves and our family and our community. And there are people who give up their right to live because they want to murder others. And so, of course, there's a self-defense law in the Bible, just like there is in American society, and there needs to be.
Do you think, getting back to this thing about people coming back to the movies, do you think that, what do you feel about the theater experience? I mean, right now, the rule of thumb in Hollywood seems to be that people will only come to a theater to see huge spectacles like the Marvel movies, whereas the smaller movies all get sent to streaming. And first of all, is that bad? And secondly, do you think that's true? Do you think people will coming to the theaters? I have to tell you before you go on, the last time I was in a movie theater was pre-pandemic. My wife and I went to see a movie, and I literally do not remember what the movie was, but all I remember is the whole afternoon cost me $100. That's what I remember.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So I would say that is half true, for sure. I mean, people have every movie in the world at their fingertips at home. So many of them, like us, they got a projector, they got a screen, they got a nice speaker. Right. They have a really great experience at home. And so Hollywood has just come to say, well, you know what? They're going to watch it at home. We're going to do the theatrical release. It's really a big advertising campaign. So very often, even these movies that make $100 million at the box office lose money in their theatrical run because they spend so much on the marketing. The split with the exhibitors is not what the studios would like. And it's very, very rare that a movie actually makes money in theatrical. It's all a big ad campaign for the streaming release later.
Is the split still 50-50 between the exhibitors?
It depends on the studio. It depends on the movie and how anxious the exhibitors are to get it. But because the exhibitors have had such a tough time getting people to come out, they demand a little bit more. And so, and for independent movies, quite a bit more. So it's not 50-50. It's often a lot less for the producers, for the distributors. But there are some movies that are worth it. Definitely Guns N' Moses is a big screen movie. It's an edge of your seat thriller that's shot cinematically wide.
I'm going to ask you about that. If you have a 70-inch television at home, and depending on how far you're sitting away from it, generally it is kind of a big screen. It's a kind of a big screen experience.
Yeah. You're getting a good view of the movie, but you're not sitting with an audience. But you're not sitting with an audience.
That's true.
That's what's missing.
Right.
Sitting in a dark room with a crowd of people who are reacting and feeling. Obviously, in a comedy, that makes a big difference. But even in a thriller, I've seen this movie with big audiences. Our premiere had 1,000 people there. It was the opening night of the LA Jewish Film Festival. And people gasp, and people laugh, and people cheer. And it's it changes it. It's worth it. So I know how expensive it is to go out to the movies, between parking, if you have a snack, and the tickets. It costs a fortune. And so people aren't going to go the way they used to once or twice a month. But there are some movies that are worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it because it's a fun experience, because it's good to be there with the people. There's going to be so much to talk about afterward. And also because you want to support certain films so that more films like them get made. Right. This is a movie that I don't know if I told you this story last time I was on. Maybe I didn't. When we finished cutting picture on Guns N' Moses, my producing partners showed it to a big agent, right, who sells independent movies to distributors. And this guy watches the movie, says, "Great movie. You guys are going to make a lot of money in streaming." I said, "Well, thank you, but we see this as a theatrical release." He says, "Yeah, but how many Jews are there really? New York, LA, Florida?" I said, "Well, yeah, that's an important part of the audience, but a much bigger part is Christian and conservative." He says, "What are you talking about? Those people hate Jews." And I'm like, have you ever met the people that you fly over between New York and LA?
I don't understand. Who are these people that they don't get this? It's like, and the thing
he's an expert.
Right.
This is the expert.
Not only that, he makes a shitload of money. He's supposed to, this is supposed to, I don't understand. Sal, explain this to me. Where do people how are people living in such bubbles? I don't understand at all.
Because they all go to the same cocktail parties and they all read the same liberal news sources and they all say the same approved virtue signaling type of phrases. And they just stopped communicating.
Well, you said this
and
earlier.
Respecting half the audience out there.
You said this earlier about the fact that a lot of these movie studio execs are afraid of insulting their interns. Now, maybe it's my age. I'm 2 weeks away from 70. But seriously, why the fuck do you care about what you're in? Just do the right thing. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, is it, as you get older, I don't know what you think, life actually gets simpler. It's very simple. Just do the right thing. So, it's like, frick, yeah, you're going to end up with consequences. So what? You're going to end up with probably worse consequences if you do the wrong thing. So,
that's for sure.
And not to mention the fact you were talking about plan A and plan B and God's plan for plan B. No one, you can't predict anything. I mean, you just can't. I don't know. I'm just sorry. I got on my high horse.
Oh, no, you're so right. Especially in Hollywood, where the old saying is no one knows anything.
That's right.
They don't.
William Gibson. Nobody knows anything. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, I was going to ask you, so your second movie was Saving Lincoln. Now, I'm really fascinated by this. And I've got to track this down and see it. So it's
Prime, Apple, it's widely available.
Yeah, it's actually about Lincoln's bodyguard, right?
It's about the friendship between Lincoln and his closest friend, Ward Hill Lamon, who was his bodyguard. This was before there was a Secret Service. His technical job, official job, was the U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia. But really, he was Lincoln's bodyguard, and he saved his life more than once. The first assassination attempt on Lincoln was before he was even inaugurated in 1860 on the train ride on the way to Washington. And he brought Lamon with him, who was a well-armed Southerner. He was a West Virginian, but very dedicated to Lincoln. But he brought him because he enjoyed Lamon's company. Lamon was funny, and he played banjo, and he sang bawdy songs, and he kept Lincoln, who didn't have medicine for his depression, which he did suffer from. And Lamon was his medicine, so to speak. And so Lamon was present for everything. So here's a story you'll enjoy. We were on our Lincoln movie for a very long time before it finally got made. Before Spielberg was on his. And long story short, when we announced we're moving forward with ours, suddenly 2 days later, they announced they're moving forward with theirs after 10 years of delays. And what was amazing was, Spielberg, what a filmmaker, what an incredible resume, so many great movies that he's made, the most powerful man in Hollywood many times in his career. So when he sets out to make a Lincoln movie, he could do anything he wants. And so when he's going to make a Lincoln movie, it should be the Lincoln movie of the generation, maybe the Lincoln movie of all ages. But it wasn't. Like the topic, because you have to focus on something, right? Lincoln is such a vast subject. But the Lincoln movie that they made was the Civil War is over, and Lincoln is twisting arms in Congress to get a law passed that slavery will be illegal forever. Like, what's the tension? Are you really surprised that he gets that law passed after they won the Civil War? Whereas our movie is Lincoln leads the nation through the Civil War, through the darkest hours of our history and his own family's history, while people are trying to kill him. And his best friend is trying to keep him working and alive in that period. And of course, nobody would help us make our movie in a world where Spielberg is making a Lincoln movie. So how would we do it? I couldn't raise $50 million for that. In fact, we made it for $1 million. And the way that we did that was I invented a process called Cinecollage, where we shot the actors in front of a giant green screen, like a sci-fi movie. And then we built all of the environments out of actual period photographs from the Civil War that are digitized incredibly high resolution in the Library of Congress. And then we arranged them in 3D space. So, it's a black and white world. They're like 90% desaturated, but you can tell that there's a little bit of color in the people. It's obviously put together. It's a collage, and yet your brain wants it to be real. So about 30 seconds in, you forget the look and you're just taken up in the story. And we're so proud of Saving Lincoln. And please, I challenge anybody, watch Spielberg's Lincoln and Saving Lincoln, and you tell me which movie is more intriguing and fun and memorable.
Well, I'm really intrigued by the fact you left the black and white photos that you use for the backgrounds black and white, and there's something about that, and there's well, first of all, there's just something about black and white pictures in general. I don't know what it is. There's like a fantasy element because it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like real life, and
Exactly.
I think the interesting thing about your concept is that you're not, a movie isn't real life, and it's almost like, well, let's just deal with that,
Exactly.
And the other thing I have to ask you about this, I think one of the things that people find most fascinating about what you do is literally how long it takes to do this stuff.
No,
I mean, you work on a movie for years and years and years. How long did you say Saving Lincoln took you?
10 years. That took over 10 years.
10 years. So seriously, how do you deal with the mental gymnastics of getting up every day and working on something where you're not going to see the results for years and years ahead of time? Most people can't relate to this.
Thank you for that. That's a wonderful question. What I say to young filmmakers, you should do something else. The only reason that you should be in this business is because you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, because you need to do it, because you must do it, because you feel called to do it. And if you have that feeling as a director, what that really means is that you have a vision of what that movie is going to be like at the end of that process in a theater with an audience, reacting to the world that you've created and the story that you're telling. And you have to be able to envision that all the way back at the start. Before you, in our case, we're writing, my wife and I write together and I direct. So we create the scripts too. And we have to have that vision from the beginning. And then you have to remain true to it when so many things go wrong, like over and over again. The money falls through, a star falls through, the location falls through. People rise up to oppose you and condemn you and critique you and stop you. There's just so much opposition. I mean, now Guns N' Moses is coming out, and now we're going wide, like I mentioned earlier, on September 7th. But we were released July 18th, and we have big stars. We could not be more timely. I mean, we wrote and shot Guns N' Moses before October 7th. We never imagined a horror like that. When we knew that Jews Under Attack Who Fight Back would always be relevant, but we didn't imagine October 7th, nor the explosion of Jew hatred since. So that makes our movie hyper relevant. Now, a movie like that, with our stars, with our footprint, with our background, with the number of feature articles written about it, should have hundreds of reviews. Low end, okay, should have 60 or 70 reviews. It has 10, only 10 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Why is that? Well, do you remember Sound of Freedom? Yeah. Sound of Freedom had 100,000 audience reviews and not even 10 reviews for months and months and months and months and months, because when you're off narrative, right, the establishment ghosts you. And that is part of the opposition that we've had to surmount. And it's really because the people have heard about the movie and want the movie, that we're finally going to have that national footprint on September 7th. But that's why it's so important when you see movies like this that you can really embrace and get behind. And when people see our trailer, they're like, I want to see that. That looks so cool. Then you got to come out and vote with your feet, so that a movie like this succeeds and there can be more movies like it.
I don't think it's just the movie business. This is another thing that kind of bugs me about modern life. And that is, as you get more people, everything becomes more of an all or nothing affair. It's like, I mean, I can make an argument that in America right now, the difference between succeeding and not succeeding is vast. There's like very few people end up kind of in the middle. You know what I mean? It's like, there aren't a lot of middling successes. You're either extremely successful or you're obscure. I mean, do you think that's true too, or?
Yeah, I think part of it is the economics. And part of it, it's interesting. I want to think about what you're saying and see how it's here. Do a thought experiment with me. Like, how does that thought square with something that we see going on in modern culture, which is, it used to be that young people how did they acquire wisdom? From their elders, right? From the previous generation. It was a vertical learning, a passing down of wisdom from one generation to the next.
Right.
Now, these kids are so addicted to their phones and to social media that they look horizontally to see what is everyone else in their peer group and age group, what are they approving and responding to, and what do they think is wisdom?
Oh, you just blew my mind.
Right?
That's such an incredible analogy. I also think if you stop and think about it, I've been sitting here bitching and moaning about all these stupid kids on campus and Queers for Palestine, but if you look at it that way, that's the reason so many of them think this way.
Right. Because it's an echo chamber and they see a whole lot of people doing and saying the same things. Right. It must be right. It must be wise. It must be true. And they commit to it. And then they think that they're people older than them who've seen a few things in our lives, but maybe we don't type as fast with our thumbs. We must be full of it. We don't know anything. We don't understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
And they have nothing to learn from us. And there's consequences for that.
My God, this is why I do this. You taught me something today. Thank you very much. I tell you what, let's watch your trailer here, okay? So we saw the teaser at the beginning of the interview here, and let's watch your actual trailer. Here we go.
This attack. It's personal to me. This crime against a Jewish community will not go unpunished.
His name is Clay Gibbons. That is a sick joke. And he drives a Matt Green GTI with Nazi insignia.
Get your hands off my son!
Your son's a member of a white nationalist hate group.
Dad! It was a rap room!
I lost everyone, but I survived.
The question is, are you going to be a sheep or a shepherd?
Told him what I found, then he was killed.
What did you find?
Why you want to play detective?
Because no one else is. Isn't the killer in custody? The suspect is in custody.
You don't control me, Alan. You controlled you. You blew it. Are you gonna find who did it and get me out of here?
Yes, I am.
When your enemy tells you that he wants you dead, believe him.
There are no words, but there will be deeds.
God in heaven, man. That's you were talking about the comparison to the Mount Rushmore scene in North by Northwest, but I'm watching that and I'm thinking it's more like the crop duster scene in North by Northwest. All those mirrors out in the middle of nowhere. It's like that's pretty cool. That's really pretty cool. I tried to check. I found out about your re-release when I was preparing for this because I actually tried to track down a place to see the movie and I realized it had been pulled, But so once again, you got 5 days starting September 7th.
Yep. You can go right now and the tickets are available now. And in fact, I recommend, because it's 5 nights only, people should get their tickets now because they are selling out in some locations. But it also signals to Fathom and to the theater chains that they could add more theaters. So please, people, get your tickets now. The simple link is gunsandmosesmovie.com. And then there it'll take you right over to Fathom Entertainment where you buy the tickets. Or you can just go to Fandango if you're
That's
on
fantastic. That. We'll put all this stuff up on our blog, all these links and stuff, and the trailers too, and the teaser. So I always love talking to you, Sal. It's like, and also I got way more questions here, but I'm gonna let you go because I promised you only 25 minutes. So we went over. So my apologies.
I'm enjoying the conversation, Jim.
I love talking to you. So we'll have you back. I tell you what, Oh, so what happens after the 5 days? What happens after that? Is the movie going to go to streaming? I assume at some point.
Yeah. It'll be streaming just a short time after that, like a month after that, because we have to give a window for it, so that people can see it in the theaters. But eventually, it'll just be available everywhere by streaming.
Well, I'm going to grab the missus, and I'm actually going to go out to the theater and see it. I'm going to drag friends too. I told a friend of mine about your movie and what it was about, and he thought was really impressed by the whole premise of the whole thing. He thought it was really cool. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're like Minneapolis? Is that where you are? Something like that?
Minneapolis. Yeah.
Yeah. We got theaters there.
I can almost guess there's 2 or 3 theaters here in town. I'm almost certain at least one of them's going to play it. So which ones?
I'm not sure which, but we're doing AMC, Regal, Cinemark, Marcus, Harkins. The big chains.
Right.
It's a great thing that Fathom does, because that's why it's Sunday to Thursday, right? So they use the theaters when maybe there's a little bit of less people there, 1 or 2 shows per day, and it creates a wonderful opportunity. But people got to go. They got to go. September 7th. Get your tickets now.
Yeah, we will. Thank you, Sal. Thanks for joining us today, and I always love talking to you. I will see you. You come back soon, okay?
Okay, likewise, Jim. I look forward to it. All the best.
Thank you. That's Salvadore Litvak, producer, director of the movie Guns N' Roses. Go see it, man. It looks like just a blast. The idea of a rabbi going around shooting people up. I'm laughing. And we were going to have the entire cast of the movie on. That was the idea. That was why we tried trying to get all these people together, trying to coordinate schedules. It basically became impossible. And then we just said, well, let's bring Salvador back. And I have a confession I got to make to you, which probably something you've never noticed. Now, I was just during while the interview was playing, I was sitting here thinking, in the last 6 years, including my time at Kong News, I have probably done, between radio shows, audio podcasts, video podcasts, these live video feeds, I've probably done about almost 700 shows. That's what I figured. And so who haven't I had on? I'll tell you. First of all, I have a rule here, and you might never notice this unless I brought it up. I don't have on sitting politicians. I made one exception. Well, years ago at Kong News, I had on a state senator from Minnesota because of some cockamamie idea he floated about swapping 2 counties with Wisconsin. It was just a humorous factor, but he was serious. And the thing is, it was a serious issue, but the idea of swapping counties with Wisconsin, nonetheless, we found funny. And that's the only time I've ever had a sitting elected official on one of these shows. I won't do it because all they do is lie. If they're running for office, or if they're running for re-election, if they're sitting in almost hardly anyone term limits anything, they'll say anything to get reelected, and I don't care about that. I don't. I'd make an exception for Trump for sure, and maybe a few other people, but generally we don't have that. The other thing I don't have on the show, and the reason I brought this up, is I generally don't have on dramatic film actors, because what you don't know, you the public, they're boring as people. They're boring as hell. I mean, I cannot stress this to you enough. I mean, the dirty secret of Hollywood is it takes no. It's like anything else. Some people are better than it than others, but you don't really need a lot of talent to be reasonably good in a movie. You don't, as an actor. My cousin of mine is a very famous assistant director in Hollywood, and I want to tell you, assistant directors don't direct anything. What they generally do is handle all the logistics for the real director, the main title director. So she's not really telling actors what to do per se. But she told me this once Just straight out, she said, Jim, we have this down to such a science that we can pull somebody off the street at random, and as long as they can follow directions, we can make them look like a genius on the screen. And I've been in enough. I've only had some bit parts in some independent films. I've done enough to know that that's totally true. It does not take a lot of talent. Now, granted, there are people who have talent who do pop off the screen. I mean, yeah, it's like anything else. Some people are better than others, but it doesn't take a lot of talent to do it. And that's what you sitting at home or in your car, wherever you're watching this on your phone, might not know. The exception to that, or the converse, is comedic film acting, which takes an enormous amount of talent. And that's the reason, I can't remember. I think the last comedy that won Best Picture, the Best Picture Oscar, I think to this day is still Annie Hall, I think. And that's going back 50 years ago, if I'm right. And because the Hollywood also, we were talking with Sal about the fact that people are secretly resentful of writers because it's the only part of the chain that can't be faked, basically, yet. But they're also resentful of comedic film actors because there aren't many people that can do it. And so the people that, if you're putting on a comedy, they're basically the usual suspects get hired over and over again because they can do the job. And so you don't want to take a flyer or a chance on somebody that's new because you have no idea whether they can actually do it or not. I mean, who would be a good example of this? Anna Faris, maybe. Kate McKinnon, some of the people who've been on Saturday Night Live. I mean, Tina Fey has been in a movie, but she did do 30 Rock, and she's a really good example. There aren't many people that can do it. Now, I'm talking about comedic film acting. I'm not talking about stand-up. And that's another thing, too. Those are completely different things. Just because you can do stand-up doesn't mean you'll be a good comedic film actor, and vice versa. I mean, most comedic actors don't even try to do stand-up. They don't. And it's the same thing with kind of what I'm doing here. People assume if you're a comedian, you can do this talk show gig pretty well, and nothing could be further from the truth. They're apples and oranges, and they constantly. Chevy Chase proved that 30 years ago. I mean, I don't know if you can look this up on the Wikipedia or whatever, if you're not familiar with it, or if you're a youngin or whatever. Fox Broadcasting gave Chevy Chase a talk show, and it lasted for 6 weeks, and it was so bad, it was unbelievable. It was cringingly bad. I don't know if there's any examples of it left on YouTube. I have no idea. Pat Sajak also he had a talk show on CBS well before David Letterman did, and that wasn't cringingly bad, but it wasn't good either. It was pretty damn mediocre. I know he's not a comedian, but people assume that if you're a comedian and you're good at coming up with funny stuff, you can do this sort of gig, and that's not necessarily true at all. It's really funny how people, especially people in the industry, they can't slice and dice this. And a good example is Stephen Colbert, who just got fired at CBS. When Letterman left and they were looking for a replacement, everybody online, everybody was saying, "Oh, you got to do Colbert. You got to choose Colbert." He was doing the Colbert Report on, on Comedy Central, which was brilliant because he was actually interviewing people in character. And I tell you, I watched that. I watched it, and I thought, holy shit, man, how the fuck do you do this? Because I mean, he's obviously a very, very brilliant, talented individual. But when it comes to hosting a talk show, so they gave him the talk show. And here was my concern. He had never played himself on TV. He had never appeared as himself. He was always in character, whether it was a Daily Show, movies, whatever. He never appeared as himself. And the art to doing a talk show is basically how much of yourself can you be? It's the opposite of acting. It is. Can you be yourself and be comfortable on camera? Because most people can't. They'll be themselves, but they're not comfortable. So they chose Colbert, and this is kind of lost to history now, even though it was only 11 years ago. The first year he did so badly, they almost fired him. So they brought in Chris Lick, who was a producer of Morning Joe, of all things, and he basically created Morning Joe, and it was his wisdom to stick Joe and Mika together. And of course, they ended up getting married, and that ruined that. And I'll talk about that some other time. But so they brought in Chris Lick to repackage the show. And Chris basically went to Steven and said, well, what do you feel comfortable doing? And Steven said politics. And he said, okay, we'll do that. So what the Colbert or what the Late Show became is basically the Colbert Report, except Steven wasn't playing a character. He was himself. And it succeeded for a while. I mean, out of the 11 years he's done it, about 5 of them, the ratings were pretty good. And then it started to go to hell because, first of all, he has Trump derangement syndrome, which we can talk about that at length. I don't know it's still going on. It's It's absolutely crazy the stuff people are saying about about Trump meeting Putin and all these negotiations are doing. I mean, some of these people are just. I mean, wacky liberal nuts is not even close to what's going on here. It isn't. Any rate, Colbert ended up being middling because he had never played himself on TV either. So I just bring this up to the point that it's like you want somebody to host a talk show who can host a talk show, and I know that's like master of the obvious crap, but still, that's basically the way it works. And speaking of CBS, so it came out today. There's all that stuff about the fact that CBS, settled with Trump on this. Trump sued them about the 60 Minutes Kamala Harris interview, and they settled with him. And a lot of people, including Stephen Colbert, were saying, "Why did you do this? You shouldn't have done it. You would have prevailed in court." It turns out there was a overriding reason why they did it, other than that interview itself. It turns out that in October 2023, Scott Pelley interviewed the president, Joseph Biden, and that didn't go well either, and they edited that interview too. And apparently, Redstone, what's her first name? I can't remember. Is it Sarah? Sherry Redstone, who did until like a month ago, owned Viacom, or was the controlling owner anyway. She didn't want this to get out because she thought, and the people at CBS News really thought this too, that would be more damage. They could drag up all sorts of interviews that CBS had edited to make Democrats look better. And apparently, but this was the key one. Apparently, Biden was barely awake. Apparently. And they edited the interview to make him look more cogent. Geez, no, really? You did that? That's incredible. My God, who would have thought that would ever happen? Especially to Joe Biden, So that's the reason they settled. They settled because now it wasn't just the Kamala interview. They didn't want all the rest of this to come out, and they thought it would if they ended up going to court. So they settled. And so in that apparently that's that, and also Viacom's Sherry Redstone, she sold her company and the FCC approved and all this sort of stuff. And now it's owned by Skydance, and they just took over 2-3 weeks ago, I think, at the beginning of this month. So it's now they own it. So that's what happened there. So all the people, they're screaming, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. As usual, they didn't have all the facts in hand. Just like all the people are screaming about the fact, Trump made a fool out of himself, the Putin, blah, 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 blah. I'm astonished how few people know anything about negotiation. It just astonishes the crap out of me. And the amazing thing is, most people never do it. They never negotiate. I mean, if they might negotiate a contract at work or their initial employment situation or something like that. I mean, most people in their lives are lucky if they even, or unlucky, unfortunate if they even negotiate like a handful of topics or subjects or negotiations. If they plow through it, they're lucky if they do 5. Now Trump's done probably 1,000. I was talking about this with my old friend Jeff Meyer too. I mean, Jeff is an entrepreneur, and I said, okay, Jeff, so you've done 25 of these, I've done 10, and he's done 1,000. So, and then you get people, and the real amazing thing is that people who've never done more than 1, if that at all, and they get online and then they're bashing the president for how he handled this. They don't have a clue, and I'm astonished they don't know. That's what actually amazes me. You think you think, well, I've never negotiated a lot. Maybe there's something more to. It's extremely complicated. You know, it's like, oh, he's kissing up to Putin. Oh, no shit, he's kissing up to Putin. I wonder why. He wants something from him. You know, it's like, well, you know, people say, oh, you shouldn't even shake the guy's hand. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. And that's exactly what Biden did. And notice nothing happened. Nothing. Biden says, I'm not going to talk to that guy. Oh, yeah, that's great. You do that. You don't talk to him. That'll work out. Geez, I wonder where we get then. Nowhere. We got nowhere. It's come out now that a recent poll taken last month saying, yes, the people in America, the majority of people think that Biden was the second worst president in American history. Yeah, and I agree totally. I was saying that years ago. I said that after Afghanistan. So we were talking last night about the fact that two of these U.S. congressmen, I'll use men, even though one of them is a woman, Eric Burlison and Anna Paulina Luna, have both told interviewers in the last week that they have seen photos of dead alien bodies, that they've seen that. And of course, everyone's screaming, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? And as I've been saying, if you saw the pictures, you wouldn't believe it. So the photos at this point, photography, photo evidence is useless. It is, because anything can be dummied up with AI and to look like anything. So if I presented you pictures of dead alien bodies that were real, you'd think it was fake. So what's the point? What is the point? Well, anyway, it's come out now. The other thing that's come out is that Eric Burlison said he was in a classified meeting. And this is really interesting because the thing is, apparently Burlison is under security oath, but this guy, his name is Eric Davis. He's one of the foremost physicists in the United States. He's in the meeting, but he is not under a security oath, apparently. And this is why this came out. He said in a congressional meeting that the U.S. government, the U.S. military, has evidence of 4 different species of extraterrestrials. Now, I had heard this before, too. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, it's the Greys, the Nordics, the insectoids, or what's called the mantis people, and the reptilians. Those are the 4 that Davis named. Now, this goes back to the 1960s. Supposedly, when it's been rumored, and I never know how much this is true, although Laura Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower's granddaughter, says that this is true. This happened, that Eisenhower met with these aliens. Well, apparently he met with both the Nordics and the Greys separately, and they told him that there were 4. So through the 1960s, and also a guy named oh God, I'm not going to forget his name. Jesus, Robert, not Dowd. Oh man, God, he worked for NATO, and he said he read what was called then the assessment of the situation, which was a large report NATO made, and in the report it said there were 4 different species of extraterrestrials. What I've heard since then is that they've identified at least 60 now. But these are the 4 classic ones have been around apparently forever. And Burleson said that Davis mentioned this in the meeting to congressmen. Eric Davis is one of the most celebrated physicists in America. You have to understand this. So, and he's done a lot of work on classified projects for the military. Him and a guy named Hal Puthoff are basically they're at the top of the food chain on this sort of stuff. These guys have done everything and anything. So the fact that Davis spat this out during a congressional hearing, a closed door, but still during the hearing, is really amazing. If you want me to talk about this a little bit, it doesn't matter. I'm going to anyway. There's some confusion of whether the Nordics and the tall whites are the same race, and I don't know this either. And people get this confused. And apparently the Nordics look almost identical to humans. That basically they can pass as humans, walk around. They're identical. The tall whites, and I don't know if this is parsing definitions or appearances or what, but the tall whites apparently look very similar to humans, but they have very, very large blue eyes. Not the same like wraparound sunglasses eyes like the Greys have. They have normal pupils. They have human eyes, but they're unusually large, and they're always blue, and they have what people call stringy platinum blonde hair. It's platinum blonde, but it's not. They don't have a full head of hair like we do. It's like somebody, I don't know, some fancy hairstylist actually like thinned your hair out or something like that. It's like so Charles Hall, who's written about them, he said he saw them at Area 51 in the 1960s. He said that if they put sunglasses on, and the other thing is they have chalk white skin, extremely white skin. It's not like unusually white skin, but he said if they put sunglasses on, they could pass. They could. Matter of fact, he said he took a few of them out to Las Vegas. They all wore sunglasses. They have unusually white skin, but nothing that would you'd if these people were walking down the street, you'd say, "Oh my God, that woman's kind of white." That's probably what you say. But yeah. So, and I don't know if anybody even knows if these two species of aliens are the same. I don't know. Supposedly, also, the Nordics, the only big difference between the Nordics and humans is that the Nordics only have 24 teeth, supposedly. But you can't tell that from somebody smiling, even. So you can't tell that either. The insectoids look like little praying mantis, the little praying mantis bugs, except they're 6, 7, 8 feet tall, which would scare the crap out of everybody. And the reptilians are supposedly look like human alligators. And I mean, I have to be honest. I don't know if the reptilians are actually real. People talk about this all the time, but it's true. It's such a science fiction trope to me that I can't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't. It's like, and supposedly they're relatively evil too. The Greys are, that they've been around forever, and also the little Greys. There's pretty much a lot of evidence that they're biological robots. Basically, the tall Greys they come in two sizes. The tall Greys are the actual Greys. Apparently, the little Greys are just like our biological machines. Apparently, I don't know. I've never seen any of these things. I've never seen pictures, I've never seen anything. This is all what I've gathered talking to people and reading. But at any rate, yeah, Eric Davis, the renowned physicist, he said in a meeting that we are aware for at least four species of aliens. He said that. Then the other thing that's come out recently is the fact that there's The Hill wrote an article, matter of fact, I think it was today, about the fact that some people are demanding studies about these orbs that people are seeing everywhere. And the weird thing is, people have been seeing them everywhere for 50 years. It's just finally now people in the scientific community are starting to pay attention. The U.S. military, there's a very famous film they've released publicly of a drone they have flying around. Excuse me. One of the U.S. military bases in Iraq, and right between the drone and the ground, this steel ball comes just flying through the frame, and the drone automatically starts to follow it, starts to track it, and they don't know what it is. It's flying around, and it's obviously not a balloon. It's changing direction, all sorts of stuff like that. And these things are seen everywhere. Now in Buca, Colombia, supposedly one of these things landed and somebody grabbed it. And so when I say supposedly, here's what we actually know. Numerous people in Buga filmed this thing on their phones flying around. Numerous people that we have film of the same shot from multiple different angles of this steel ball flying around. It's about the size of a basketball, and it's flying. And there's even a video of it landing. And supposedly one of these photographers, one of these people filming it, went and picked it up. And supposedly, I'm saying supposedly because I don't know, I have no proof of this. Supposedly the person who picked it up got radiation sickness, supposedly. Okay? Now, they have in their possession, and when I say they, if I'm right, it's a Colombian UFO organization. They have the ball. They've x-rayed it. They said there's electronic components inside of it. It doesn't make any sense. It hasn't moved since they grabbed it. In other words, essentially, it looks like it crashed. It does. They're trying to revive it because they think that if they can actually, like, they're shocking it with electricity. If they can revive it, they can maybe intercept a signal where it calls home. Okay, and Jesse, or not, Marsan, this Mexican guy who does this stupid Mexican TV show on UFOs, he's went and looked at it. And apparently, some American scientists have gone and looked at it too. And I think, if I'm right, did Eric Burleson, the congressman, did he go down there to look at it also? He might have. He might have actually done that. But I have to tell you, there's no chain of custody between the film of this thing crashing and what they picked up. In other words, we don't actually know if what these people are displaying is actually what crashed in that field. We don't actually know that. So, and also there's weird writing on this thing, weird designs, and people say, and apparently it's been translated, something about the history of the earth or something, and I have a hard time buying the fact that the ETs would go through the trouble of putting fancy designs on this thing. I don't know why. I don't think they do that. I don't. What's the point? So I'm skeptical. I'll be honest. No, but the thing is, here's the other thing. I'm not skeptical of the phenomena. No, these balls have been flying around everywhere, and there's all sorts of film of this. And like I said, even the U.S. military publicly showed a film of them tracking one of these things. They haven't. Now, a guy named Patrick Jackson from Britain, he's written a book called, Jesus Christ, Paranormal Activity. Is that what it's called? Anyway, he has a very interesting theory. He is an information scientist by trade. And he's been tracking paranormal phenomena. And something finally, he spent a couple nights in what's considered the most haunted place in Britain. And it's called 3 something something Drive. Now I can't remember. I should have looked this stuff up. I just pulling this out of my butt. Anyway, he spent the night there. And the place is apparently haunted as hell. You'll see all sorts of stuff. But he said what was really interesting is that he saw one of these shadow figures that everybody who stays in this house say they see. But he said it looked kind of like there was like digital noise in it. And he said, well, that's odd if it's a ghost. And then he started to realize, well, maybe it's not a ghost. Maybe it's a digital projection. And so that started his long journey on trying to figure out what's going on here. And he says he has figured out that these steel balls, these spheres that are flying around, are all networked on Earth. There's thousands of them, and they're all networked together. That's his thing. She says there are 3 different layers of them based on their sizes. The small ones are about the size of a basketball. Then the larger ones or the medium size, about the size of a large beach ball. And then you get to really big ones that are in the upper atmosphere that maybe are 20 feet across. And those have been seen by airline pilots. But his thing is that this is a network that's been put in place. And the other thing is, I don't know how he figured this. I read his book. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I should put a link up on our blog to it. It's called, guy's name is Patrick Jackson, and you can find it on Amazon. He said that in passing, he said that as far as he can tell, this network is not that the people who built this network are no longer running it. It appears, he said, that another entity has taken over the network. In other words, the network might be, relatively speaking, ancient, and another entity is taken over because he said now there's obvious flaws in the software that are running this thing that are never corrected. And he said some of them are relatively large. And the reason he figured this out is that not only did he figure out how they're exchanging information, based on that, he's now figured out he can summon these things. And he says he can do it very easily. He needs a couple laptops and a couple speakers. That's it. And he can summon these orbs. And he's done it reliably in front of other people many times. It's not a problem. He knows how to do it. So he doesn't know what the orbs are actually doing. He thinks they're here partly to monitor what we're doing, and also maybe to protect us too. It might be a benevolent situation. But people have seen, I mean, I read about some guy, it was in Houston or something like that. He said he went out to a parking lot in his office building to get in his car, and he said there's this orb just floating there 5 feet across the ground, and then it's following him. And then there's some woman in Miami who said that these orbs came into her house through the wall and quote unquote looked around and then left through the wall. They actually went through the wall, not a hole. They actually went through the wall. Now, and I've talked about this before, that if you as a physical concept, that wouldn't be that difficult. It wouldn't. But I won't talk about that now. Now I can explain why, but I won't. So at any rate, so there's a push now in the scientific community to actually start to try to study these things. I'm sure, hopefully, now the Hill article did not mention Patrick Jackson, but many other people in the UFO community have. Many other people have seen his work. So I'd like to get him on the show. He's been on a few podcasts, but just a few, and I don't know how to get a hold of him. I've tried looking, I tell you, booking guests for these shows is like, it's an art. I have some help now. I'm really glad, because it's like, you first of all, you got to find the email address or phone number for somebody who's essentially famous. Try that. And then you actually have to get through to them. And most people, ignore most of their emails, at least at that level. So the other thing that happened too is you're now floating around, and this, believe it or not, this article was on Outkick, the sports site owned by Fox News, which is really, really funny. I read it regularly. They do this thing called Nightcaps every night. I think that's Zach Dean who writes it. It's very funny. They all the wacky stuff in sports and then all the wacky stuff in culture. But they wrote an article about the fact that, and this has been floating around for a while too. And there's no date on this, but apparently there's a CIA document. Now, you got to listen to me here. There's an actual CIA document, and the CIA has confirmed that the document is legit, that talks about the fact that apparently in Siberia, a bunch of Soviet soldiers shot. So I guess it's Soviet, there has to be pre-1992, I guess, if they're Soviet soldiers. They shot down a UFO, and they went to retrieve it. And out of the UFO come supposedly, quote, 5 short humanoids, and they fired a ray at all of the soldiers and basically turned them all into limestone. Except 2 of them that happened to be behind trees or something like that didn't get hit. They survived, but the rest of them literally were turned to stone. Now, even the CIA itself has said that it's a report from Russia, so they don't know if the report's real. Like I said, the CIA document is real. The CIA is copying of that. So no one knows if this is real or not, but it's really, really weird. And the other thing this brings up is supposedly the dirty little secret in UFOs in the U.S. military is how many we've shot down. And I've read people say that the fact that we're shooting at these people, they have a lot of patience with us because generally they don't shoot back, generally. So, I mean, we're shooting down UFOs and we're killing their people in the process, and they've been pretty damn patient with us. So, anyway, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's true either. I'm just throwing that out for you for your perusal. Volkswagen is turning their engine performance upgrade into a subscription. This is on their new ID3 vehicle. It's an EV, it's electrical, but it comes out at 210 horsepower, comes off the line, and you buy it at that. But for $30 a month, you can increase the horsepower to 230 horsepower. And it's like, yeah, really? Now, they're not the first company to offer. BMW also offered subscription upgrades for all sorts of stuff like heated seats that were literally you just paid them and they turned it on. The difference here, it's this actual thing in the engine. It's a performance. Somebody brought this up in this article, and when I read this, this is Breitbart, about the fact that what happens, what if you hack your car? I mean, you own the car. So if you could hack the system and turn it on, have you broken some law? Do you still owe them money? Are they just screwed? And should they be screwed? It's your vehicle. Can't you do whatever you want with it? I mean, it's like, yeah, no, these questions have not been answered yet, but they're doing this. You can up the performance of your EV by sending them $30 a month. Oh my God. And finally, I gotta close with this because I'm a former professional musician. Pete Townsend of the Who, him and Roger Daltrey. Now, Townsend's 80, Roger Daltrey's 81, and they're on tour. Now, they're the last two surviving members of the Who, but so they have a band behind them, but there's basically, well, Townsend himself described that they are now a Who tribute band. I thought that was pretty good, because the thing is, I have a real problem with these guys. They were bitching and moaning. There's this famous thing about Mick Jagger said that he thought once he turned 30, he'd kill himself, and here he is at 83 or 84, and he's still performing. And I don't want to see it. I don't care how good they were in their prime. I don't care how good their music is. It's the same with Daltrey and Townsend. I'm not going to go see two old men trying to relive their youth. I'm not going to. And I'm almost their age. I am. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Although Townsend's call themselves a Who tribute band, I got to give them some credit. That's actually pretty cool. That is. I don't know why people want to see this stuff. I don't. I have no idea. But now Paul McCartney, he's going on tour. He's 84. My sister, he's coming to Minneapolis. My sister just bought tickets to see him. That I think she spent $700, if I'm right. Which I know you might gasp, and I might gasp. But the thing is, and here's the deal. I mean, I hate to be. I'm parsing fine points here, but McCartney's a real musician. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, there's not a lot of jumping around on stage. There's no windmill guitars. There's no Roger Daltrey. Doing splits or none of that. Or Mick Jagger mugging. He's just playing. I'm okay with that. And that kind of goes to with the Beatles were never a showy band. They weren't, even when they were touring, even when they were young. But the ticket price, I don't know. It's like I'm not going to spend $700 to go see them. I'm not going to do that. But if you want to, I'm okay with that. But no, I don't want to see Townsend do his windmills at 81 years old. I don't want to see it. I don't. No, go home. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go home. I want to thank you folks for watching. I want to thank Salvadore Litvak for joining us. Fantastic interview. That is this thing about the fact that kids learn horizontal versus vertical. We'll talk about that sometime. Maybe even tomorrow with Larry Newman's our guest, bail bondsman, Bigfoot investigator. He's got stuff going on. And you got it going on too. I know. I can say that because I'm a boomer. It's boomer approved. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. I'm Jim Peters. I want to thank you folks again for watching. Really, we'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night's our last show before Labor Day. So we'll see you then. Take care.